Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got a lovely new supporter card to be taking a look at. It is the debut of Marnie, one of your rivals from the Sword and Shield games, which of course are not out yet, so, making debuts straight away. This is very good. Now, do remember the new supporter rule we talked about when talking about Professor Magnolia yesterday? Now, or at least as of November the 29th, when these cards are out in Japan, you are not, as the player going first, going to be able to play supporter cards on your first turn. It is only one player, and it is only for one turn, but you are not allowed to play supporter cards. Now, as some people have pointed out, no, that is not a rule that has been announced for anywhere outside of Japan, but as I explained in my video, I will be absolutely stunned if that rule does not make it over here. As always, we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? But Marnie then, what does it do? Well, our translation, stop me if you've heard this one before, comes from the lovely Antoine Boulay. And this one, it's a little bit more complicated and awkward than we're used to. So here's what happens. Both players put their hands face down and shuffle their hand, then put their shuffled hand at the bottom of their deck. Then you, as a player who played Marnie, draw 5 cards, and your opponent draws 4. Cool. So it's kind of like Judge, but there are 2 giant differences between this and Judge. First of all, you draw an extra card, and this is unmitigatedly brilliant, right? There are 2 reasons to play Judge. One is for you to draw cards, one is for you to try and give your opponent a smaller or at least worse hand than they currently have. You getting an extra card doesn't stop your opponent being hurt, but it does give you an extra card. So this is awesome. And your opponent goes down to 4 cards like they would be with Judge. But the other giant thing here is that you cannot redraw the cards that you've currently got in your hand. With Judge, you shuffle your hand into your deck and you draw, 4 cards. With Marnie, it'll be 5. With Judge, it's 4. So if you draw 4 cards and you had a hand of 4, it is conceivable and statistically likely at some point, you will just shuffle 4 cards into your deck and draw those same 4 cards. And if you played enough games of Pokemon, that will have happened to you at some point. That is not possible with Marnie. The cards that you've actually put in, you cannot draw back, because they're going on the bottom of your deck, and then you're drawing cards from the top of your deck. Incidentally, if you do want to get those cards back, might I suggest Looker? If you want to find Looker, might I suggest Looker Whistle? So the question becomes, alright, is anyone going to play this? And the answer sometimes is absolutely yes. I mean, one thing that I really love, we've got GX attacks tend to come around, right? So there's one that came around originally with Metagross, whereby you search your deck for any 5 cards, but we also saw it coming around on Whimsicott in Unbroken Bonds. Single energy, search your deck for any 5 cards, put them in your hand. It guarantees that you got a really good hand. And it's times like this where Marnie becomes absolutely wonderful. Because not only are you putting your opponent down to a smaller hand, I mean, if they have 0 cards in hand and they use this, you've got 5, Marnie puts them down to 4. But what's even better here, and it is beyond wonderful, your opponent is going to go and search for the cards that they want. They are going to search for the perfect cards that are going to help them out for next turn. So what you're doing now is making sure that they cannot draw into those cards. Not only are they getting a new hand of 4, but the cards they just searched with Metagross or Whimsicott cannot possibly be in their hand. Do you see how fun that is? Do you see how wonderful that is? It's phenomenal, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely phenomenal. That's what I really love about Marnie. If you know your opponent's got a good hand, this will help you out massively. I mean, one thing that might have happened, your opponent might be playing U-turn board. You might know that your opponent has 2 U-turn board in hand, so by playing this, your opponent is unlikely to have a U-turn board. Or maybe you're against a Porygon Z deck. I love Porygon Z. Lets you attach as many energy as you like as long as they're special. And we've got Recycle Energy. If Recycle Energy would be discarded from play, you put it into your hand instead of in the discard pile. So your opponent's playing a Porygon deck, maybe with Whimsicott. They attach all 4 Recycle Energy to Whimsicott, because they can do that with Porygon Z, and then you knock out Whimsicott and all the Recycle Energy goes back to your opponent's hand. Well, they've got all 4 Recycle Energy in hand, they've got Porygon Z on the field, they can just reattach that Recycle Energy straight away. Oh no, they can't. You play Marnie, and you put all that energy on the bottom of their deck. It's brilliant. Now, having said that, it works the same for you. So let's say you're playing a Stage 2 deck. Let's say you're playing Chandelure. And let's say that you've got a Chandelure in hand, but you don't have a rare candy, and you really need a rare candy. Well, if you play Judge, the chances of you shuffling your hand into your deck, drawing 4 cards, and there being a rare candy in a Chandelure, from 4 cards, honestly, that's kind of slim. Your chances of hitting them aren't great. But if you play Marnie, you're putting one of those Chandelure out of reach. You are guaranteeing that you don't draw one of those Chandelure. So instead of there being, say, 3 available in your deck, there is now essentially only 2. That's not good, ladies and gentlemen. That's not good at all. But outside of that, you get an extra card. And I think I like this more than Judge. I'm not 100% sure. It's going to take a bit of testing. It's going to take some playing. But the way I see it, you get an extra card, and you get to hurt your opponent a little bit more if they've got a good hand. Now, if they've got a bad hand, arguably this is better for them. And if you don't know, then obviously you don't have enough information to really make a decision. But you still get an extra card. And the other thing is that you are going to know what's in your hand. I know that sounds really obvious, but let's just say it. You are going to know what's in your hand. So you know when you've got a bad hand. And if you've got a bad hand, this is way better than Judge. You're getting 5 cards rather than 4, and you're getting rid of 4 cards that you don't want, or however many are currently in your hand, knowing that you cannot draw them again, and you're drawing an extra 5 cards. Tell me this isn't fun, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's one other reason I really like this, although it could backfire. And I am warning you now, it could backfire. But every so often, we get Pokemon who do extra damage if you have the same number of cards in hand as your opponent. So think like Glalie EX. If you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent, 150 for free energy. I believe, and do correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong here, that the most recent we saw for this was actually Shiftry GX, which, I don't know, Shiftry GX had quite a bit of potential, right? Free energy, 90 damage, 180 if you got the same number of cards in hand as your opponent. Came out in Celestial Storm, I believe that's the most recent one. Well, with Judge, you play it and you guarantee that you and your opponent both have 4 cards in hand, but you also cannot play any of the cards you drew, because the second you draw a card and play it, you no longer have 4 cards in hand. Your opponent definitely does have 4 cards in hand. You lose, or at least you can't use the attack, or at least you cannot use the attack with the extra damage. Here, let's say you're desperately searching for a triple acceleration energy. You can draw the triple acceleration energy, play it, and still have the same number of cards in hand as your opponent. Although I did say this could backfire, and I meant it. What if you draw 5 cards you can't play? Supporters, energy, when you've already played a supporter or an energy. Pokemon that evolve from others that you can't actually do anything. I mean, yeah. It's very, very awkward, ladies and gentlemen. So, do be warned. I love this. I think this is a really good card. I prefer it to Judge. It's not going to go replacing Cynthia, right? This isn't a card like Professor Magnolia where it's just going to be a 4 of in almost every deck. It's not that kind of card. It's better draw power than Judge. A lot of the time it's better disruption than judge, but that's not always true. If your opponent's got a bad hand, it's worse disruption. And it's going to see play. It is not a game-changing card. It is not going to change the way we build decks, but it is going to give us a really nice supporter option going forward. So I'm giving it 4 Wassies. But I would be very excited to know how good you think it is. Maybe you think it's better than I'm making out. Maybe you'd rather just play judge. Either way, I would love to know, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.